spectrum frontiers. Riding hard, standing tall. From the heart of the people to the rise and the fall. Full spectrum frontiers. Where the stories ignite. Guarding tomorrow with grit in the fight.
Just make sure we're not live streaming. We're not. Okay, folks, today we've got it, Leotta, right?
Yes.
Megan Leotta. Tell us who you are, what you do, and where we can find you.
Okay. So my name is Megan Leotta. I am a former everything intel analyst. I joined the Army as a signals intelligence analyst back in 2012. A lot of people hear signals intelligence and they think like Commo Core kind of deal, 25 series in the Army. It's not that. It's like NSA hacking, spying kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I did counterterrorism for several years with NSA in the Army. I left the Army and moved to another NSA position doing illicit finance and counter narcotics at INSCOM headquarters. I left there, went to DIA and did terror watch listings for a little bit, and then moved into HVI targeting for senior Al-Qaeda officials, and briefly Al-Shabaab before DIA scrapped that whole mission. And I left that back in 2017, moved into counterintelligence, was pretty much the sole Army counterintelligence analyst for the entire Southeast region. Did that for several years. Then moved into technology protection and threat intelligence and counterintelligence from that angle, and was kind of a threat expert for a cyber supply chain initiative that the Army was trying to stand up. And I left all that about a year ago and started a podcast. And that's what I do now.
That's where you're at now.
That's where I'm at now.
So why intelligence? What drew you to intelligence initially? Because that's where your career's basically been, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what drew you there?
Ever since I was little, I always wanted to join the Army. I can remember being like 5 years old, telling my dad that I wanted to join the Army. I've always been obsessed with the military and battlefields and all of that stuff. But I also recognized that as a then young girl, that all the stuff that I thought I would want to do, that you see in like We Were Soldiers,
Yeah.
I couldn't do. So I was kind of trying to find my niche and how I could fit into this whole warfighter puzzle. And actually my first boyfriend when I was 15 years old, his sister was several years older than us. I think she was 6 years older, and she joined the Marine Corps as basically a Fox and all-source analyst. And that's when I found out what that was. And that kind of set me down a trajectory of figuring out what intel was and how I could fit myself into a position like that.
Man, poor her going in the Marines.
I know.
I mean,
Yeah, she was
I'm a
short.
Marine too. I'm a Marine as well, but
she was like 4'9", and I can't imagine the PT tests for somebody that was like 4'9", 4'10", running 3 miles.
Yeah. I mean, in the Marines at that time too, I think they still had pull-ups. So somebody had to like throw her up on the bar. So a lot of people get like intelligence, like the only thing they know about intelligence work is like what they see in the movies or on the news, right? So what do you think are I don't want to say it, like the biggest misconceptions about the intelligence community?
The biggest misconception, I think, and it's one that I battled so much, especially leaving the IC and moving into counter intel and threat intel, where you're doing intelligence work, but not for the intelligence community. People expect you to just have every answer to everything. They don't understand mission parameters. They don't understand mission requirements. They don't understand overlap and how every shop or every section or every team that sits within an intel agency or organization, that small group of people is writing a very specific and very tailored series of products for one end user. And it may all go out to, all of the IC if you have the justification to look at that kind of information. But you can collect like a crazy piece of information, but if it doesn't fit within your mission set, it just kind of gets stored. It doesn't get analyzed and it doesn't get disseminated. And the IC has a lot of problems. So if you don't know who to contact, like I've got this piece of information and I know it's going to be useful for somebody. If you don't know who to send it to, it just kind of sits. So when you have these kind of things like October 7th, which I'm not speaking, I don't know what Israel's stuff is like, so I'm not speaking from that perspective. But when you have all these things that kind of fall through the cracks and you're like, how do the intel agencies let this happen? It's very easily and believable that it can happen. There are so many boundary lines set in place that prevent kind of good information sharing from happening.
Yeah. How does that happen now? And you've been in this pretty recently, a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So how the speed of modern information warfare is just insane at this point, right? And from disinformation campaigns to cyber threats to all this stuff. And so what you're alluding to an extent is how do agencies adapt to that speed? Do they use tools, AI? All that stuff.
Yeah, so there's definitely, I would say within probably the last 5 years, it's really changed a lot. So when I came into intelligence, targeting was still super easy because you had not ISIS at the time, you had the Taliban, Al Qaeda, whoever you're targeting, they were still using handheld radios. You could characterize frequencies pretty easily and figure out nodes and networks based on that. And that was pretty straightforward. And then Snowden came out and released a whole bunch of targeting, like the TTPs that the intel community uses to target people with. And all that kind of stopped. And so there was a pretty abrupt shift after that. And then around 2015, 16 timeframe, you start getting into like the prevalence of smartphones and different apps being used and encryption services. And so that there was another shift to that. WhatsApp famously was hackable and then not, and then hackable again.
Yeah.
Telegram had its own issues. And then I'd say after the war in Ukraine, that's when smartphones have become everywhere now. And so I was in a position as a threat intel analyst for Army Futures Command, where I'm using open source information to do my analysis, because the intel community it has a whole dissemination procedure that you have to go through. You have to collect it, and then you have to analyze it, and then it has to be QC. It has to go through production. There's a whole production cycle, and then it gets released. Whereas you can just go on Twitter and, battle damage assessment is pretty straightforward. You just got some guy on the ground with a phone and he's like, this crashed here, or there's a video of it. So it's a continuous cycle, and it's been really interesting to watch it evolve.
So you bring up open source. But how do you see AI and open source intelligence and other emerging technologies? How are they reshaping the future of intelligence?
So having been out of it for a little while, that's something that I'm curious about, because I can remember working for NSA back, after Assange and after Snowden, and we would lie. It was like a joke because the Patriot Act was going on at the time. Well, I guess technically still is, but everyone was all up in arms over it. And, they're thinking that we're spying on every American citizen. And while I definitely understand and share the same concerns, as part of the intel community, we didn't even have enough analysts to fully cover Afghanistan, let alone every conflict that the world is going on that's going on in the world at the time. So we're like, there's no way that, we can assign a person to sit there and sift through, your Nana's green bean recipes and your email and your text messages and listen
Yeah.
to your phone calls and whatever. Or they would assume that we had that there was like a list, a keyword thing. So you'd get onto 4chan or something, you'd type in bomb and it would set off something at the FBI. And now everything in your house would be monitored. That wasn't that didn't exist. But with AI, you kind of wonder, is that something that could happen? It wasn't
Yeah.
possible 10 years ago, but is it now? And I don't really know.
Yeah. So like it's just so now everyone thinks it's like enemy of the state and eagle eye and everything, which frankly it might be now. I mean, I've been out of the military for a while. I've been out of
Mm-hmm.
the intel space for a while now too, and I can't even imagine the tools that they've got because AI, and even in the last 2 years, is just like ridiculous. Because the stuff I can do on like ChatGPT, it's insane. I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely insane. So that's one of those things. Like, I'm not saying that I worry about it, but I do. I do worry about it. I
Yeah,
guess it
I
just
think
depends on who's using it, right?
exactly. I mean, that's the problem with, with everything. But I think most intelligent people would. And most people that truly understand the capabilities would worry about it.
So, what do you think the U.S. needs to prioritize to maintain? I mean, if we even do have an edge in intelligence in the defense space, certain parts of the defense space, I know we have the edge,
Mm-hmm.
but what do you think we need to prioritize to maintain that?
I think right now it is such a difficult time with all the political violence or domestic terrorism that's going on in the country. Um, and then that question, how do you maintain? It just depends on what your individual focus is, because we're kind of lagging in counterintelligence from a national security perspective. We're behind the curve on counterterrorism from a national security perspective. And so I guess it just really depends on what your main focus is. If that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, it's very compartmentalized for sure. I would say,
Yeah.
so. Unfortunately, I I'm more of a domestic guy at this point. Like, we need to focus on what's here
Mm-hmm.
more than, I
Well,
mean, because overseas is going to kind of almost take care of itself. Like, you can't hide certain things, right? But
right.
domestically, we have different laws covering that. So, like, what are we actually looking at? That's my concern. So,
I think our efforts and our focus has been so widespread and scattered for the past 30 years. I don't know. That it's not really allowed us to maintain a true edge on anything. I think people that are kind of outside of the intel community think that we're, Peter Thiel has Palantir, and, if
right.
you're a Lord of the Rings fan, you know what that is. But it's
Yeah.
not, it's really not like that. We're behind in so many things. So, counterintelligence is domestic terrorism and, espionage, spying,
Yeah.
whatever. And for some people, that may take us back seat to counterterrorism efforts. But then if you're looking at a true, green on green conflict in the future, and you've got these huge, massive countries, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, the big four, whoever, and they're stealing all of our military secrets. They already have the cutting edge on the battlefield, which is going to put, thousands and thousands of soldiers' lives at risk. So it's not just, counterterrorism and what's happening right here, but it's what we're allowing to leak out as well.
Yeah. Oof. And I think people get the misconception that it's this giant machine. I mean, it is, but it's also understaffed. There's just not enough people doing it as well. I think people don't understand that it's not a sexy job. It's
it can be
right, but the norm is not.
No.
Yeah,
no,
exactly. So people get in there and they're like, hey, this isn't anything I thought it would be.
Yeah, some of the missions are super monotonous. Watch listing can be soul crushing for sure. Everybody, the dream job is targeting for JSOC or this, some kind of special forces unit. That's like what everybody wants to do. But it's hard to keep. They go through reorgs constantly. So like when I was at DIA, they had just undergone a reorg, and people that were SMEs or subject matter experts in their region for, 10, 15 years, they're all of a sudden moved out of Afghanistan, and now they're covering like Mexico or something. And it's because the director is like, well, I want, well-rounded govies, but you just lost a SME. And so it set the whole agency back very far in the mission and how everything was working. And then you've got contract turnover, and somebody will undercut, and then everybody leaves, and then you get, it's
a mess.
It's all a mess. It's
like
not all
most, like
007.
most government contracting, it's a disaster.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So getting away from this a little bit, you've decided to step into the world of podcasting. And what is the name of your podcast again?
It's kind of weird, I guess, now that I have to say it so much. It's called The Infernal Machine.
So what motivated you to start that?
I left government work summer before last now, and I was kind of just going through like a crisis of what do I do that, how do I have some sort of mission? Because after Afghanistan and everything that had happened, I just kind of felt disillusioned with government work. And then I was always so committed to the mission that I was doing. But what I was talking about earlier with all the red tape and all these parameters that were set in place, it was immensely frustrating to not be able to properly execute. Like, I can't tell you how many investigations, just went away, or how many terrorists got away. And it's just, there were so many more of those instances than there were of wins, which when you really believe in what you're doing is so demoralizing.
Soul crushing.
Yeah. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I ended up just I was looking into volunteering, like as an analyst, and just kind of doing free work for some kind of agency or organization. And there was another big podcaster who was hiring for a research associate, producer, something. And I ended up applying for that, interviewed with his whole team and him, and almost got selected. I was like the top 3 or 4 out of like thousands of people. Didn't get it. Was super bummed, and just decided, well, I'll try and do it myself. Because that was also part of when I was doing government work, I was always a contractor, and you would meet some super interesting people. But, the govies, I'd always want to talk to them because I love to talk to people, and they wouldn't talk to you because you're a contractor and you're gross. So I was like, well, now I can talk to people. There's no like barrier there. So the people that I always wanted to talk to but couldn't because of stupid rules or whatever.
You're a contractor and you're gross. I love it.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about too. I do.
Yeah.
Um, so what stories are you hoping to tell?
I guess, well, it's kind of a mashup of just interesting people that I want to talk to, but I also want to hopefully get big enough to help inspire other people that have gone through, really difficult things, or kind of going through a dark time and don't know how they can get out of it. Um, to show them other people that have and did, and hopefully, the last two episodes that I've done have been on political corruption. I think right now with our climate, that's such a huge thing. And this is focused on like local level, state level political corruption, which is where it all starts. I don't know if it's Reaganomics trickle down or trickle up, but the local stuff affects you, I'd say, more than, national or international level in some ways. Um, Trying to get people to be more involved in their communities and realize that you can make a difference, especially as vets, and people that are kind of like us. We tend to seclude ourselves and kind of hide in our homes and not really get super involved in our communities. Everybody's got a homestead now and they just want to be left alone.
Waiting for the
But
apocalypse.
right, but taking that kind of mentality is how I think we've gotten where we've gotten as a country. And so trying to help inspire people to get active in different ways.
I mean, when a local election, like for example, the town I live in, you got about 60, 70,000 people. And in the last local election, like independent of a presidential election, for like town board and school board and stuff like that, like these local positions, I think we had like, it was like 23%
Yeah.
show up, right?
Yeah.
So you do the math there. So out of 60,000 people, we had, you know, hardly any. Actually, it might have been less than 23%.
Mhm.
Either way, it was awful. The fact that there was like, it was probably like 12% actually, because I want to say there was like 6,700 people, which is just over. So anyway, but you're allowing like I'm just even talking voting. Like people don't vote. Like they're like, doesn't matter. But they'll vote every day for president, which doesn't really affect, it does, but it doesn't. So I like the fact that you're focusing on local stuff right now, because that's where your bread is buttered, because
Right.
they're the ones that affect you directly. If you want to put a deck on your house, where does that go? Because people just put decks on their house. They don't actually go through the process, but you're supposed to go get permits and stuff. But you know, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
We had here, we had a local city councilman that has over 80 rental properties, and we had like a sudden influx of Haitians in North Alabama, which is a noticeable,
Kind of weird.
kind of weird. Yeah, you go to Walmart and suddenly everyone's speaking French. That's different. Um, and they were being bused to chicken plants like an hour and a half away. So they weren't even working here in the city. And it turns out that our city councilman was renting some of his 80 plus rental homes to these Haitians. And not only that, but the homes were horrible. They're like mill houses, they're tiny, windows are busted, they don't have running water, they don't have septic. It was a mess. And the Daily Wire actually came down and did an interview and found one woman, an older white lady that was renting one of his houses. And she was paying $350 a month. And then he kicked her out and moved a Haitian family in, same house, and he's now charging 2,000. So, and there's all kinds of backdoor deals going on. And this was, in the previous administration. So how did they get here? Who set this up? Because stuff started rolling and moving into place 6 months before anybody showed up. So who are you in contact with? I'm assuming, some kind of NGO.
Yeah. Mm. I'm
It's
not saying any
there's a
names,
whole
but
right. There's a whole machine behind all of it. And the local older population, they love to say, well, have you ever worked in a chicken plant? Americans don't want to work in these chicken plants. But my son, I live in a very rural part of town, and his baseball team, several of the parents that were on his team, they worked in these chicken plants. They didn't get paid much money. They were in constant fear of losing their jobs because they didn't speak Spanish. And the management kept coming down and talking about firing them because they didn't speak Spanish. And then it started to shift because they don't speak French. So Americans will do these jobs and they'll do them for very little money, but they shouldn't have to, number one. And you also shouldn't be worried about losing your job in America at a chicken plant because you don't speak French.
yeah,
That's insane.
that's super weird, right?
Yeah.
So, what role do you think podcasts and independent media play in educating the public about this type of stuff? I think it's the only way now, in my opinion.
Yeah, pretty much. I think, that's how kind of I started to get more interested and involved. I hate the 60-minute style format of I have a list of 20 questions written down and you've gotten them beforehand. And so we're going to go through this rehearsed set of questions and answers for publicity purposes or whatever. I like the conversation style format better. My podcasts are kind of long, but I like long podcasts because I think as an analyst, I just have that mentality. And especially as a SIGINT analyst, like I want to know everything. I want to know all the ins, all the outs, all the details. How do we get here? Where are we going? And I think having long form, unscripted media in kind of a relaxed environment, it garners more trust in an audience, number one. And it just allows the true message to get out there because the politician, you give them 20 questions, they can BS it, for an hour, but you don't give them the questions beforehand and you have them there for, 2 hours and then you see the cracks start to form. So I think podcasting, independent media is incredibly important, especially in today's world.
I mean, I think that was proven in the last election cycle.
Well, and the fact that Kamala did not go on Sean Ryan, it did not go on Joe Rogan, that was one of the final nails in the coffin. It possibly could have been worse if she did, but the fact that she didn't also spoke volumes.
Well, I think that the craziest part was that they what was the one podcast that she did go on?
Call Her Daddy.
Call Her Daddy.
Ugh.
But they recreated the entire set there so she didn't have to travel, which cost her campaign hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That was like $200,000 or something.
Like it doesn't even make sense. Like that does not make sense.
No, and the girl's still just sitting there curled up on a chair wearing pajamas or whatever.
Why? Softball questions like you're talking about.
You can do that. I can curl up in pajamas anywhere. I don't need to rebuild a set to do that.
Unreal. Yeah, but So I think it is the new. It's the new media. The other stuff is. Even with what's gone on lately, with just the horrifically bad reporting, because everybody wants to be first instead of taking a step back, taking a deep breath, and letting things unfold a little bit instead of trying to. And everybody's putting out bad information hand over fist. It's ridiculous. It wasn't always like that. I know I'm old enough to remember when, it was like, well, what's happening? And you had to wait for the 6 o'clock news or there was no internet. So this is this is one of those balances that we have to find out, right? So,
Yeah.
so for let's kind of shift into just a touch back to like your military stuff. So, like for younger people who might be considering like careers in intelligence, okay? Because I have a friend whose son is thinking about it. Um, one of my daughters was thinking about it until I really kind of the squash on it. But if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But considering careers in intelligence, defense, or like even like investigative work, what advice would you give them?
I guess just know what you're getting into and kind of, especially the only real way to get into it is to go into the military. I mean, you can go through college and, these agencies will recruit out of college. I don't know how they, I don't know what the process is for that or how they pick or if you apply. I don't know how that works. I work with a few people that did that, but the easiest way is going to be going through the military, and then you have to understand what that means. Investigative, that switches over into like judicial stuff, and that's kind of that's a whole different thing. Um, you, you have to be prepared for all the roadblocks that you're going to meet, and that it's not just 007 spy stuff constantly. You have to be prepared for, you may get stationed at Fort Hood and be a gate guard because they don't have really an active intel mission. I can tell you how many people that I worked with that got stationed at Fort Hood after we graduated AIT, and they're just gate guards or raking rocks or whatever. Literally, it's a good. I'd say if you were going to go into the military and you didn't have these kind of grandiose battlefield dreams or whatever, and you're more realistic, tell is probably, if you can do it, because the barrier to entry is pretty high. It's probably your best ROI or best return on investment as far as your time in, but you have to be prepared of everything that can come with it. And especially if you're SIGINT, some of the stuff that you see and the world that you immerse yourself in, it's gonna have a lasting impact on you. So be prepared for that.
So what give me one lesson, like just that you learned in your career, right? That you think applies directly to everyday life for Americans now.
I would say vet and verify your sources and go
Yeah.
through every single piece of media that you consume with the recognition that it's already filtered through someone else's opinion. So, especially, I interviewed, I just released an episode with an investigative reporter, and I asked her kind of a similar question of like, how do you write opinion pieces and trust that it's your own opinion? Because there's no raw data. As a SIGINT analyst, you have access to raw data that's just collected, not been disseminated, not been analyzed by anyone. You actually don't want intel or finished intelligence in any of your products because you want to be able to come to your own conclusion based on your mission needs and your mission requirements. That doesn't really exist in open source with the sole exclusion of kind of battlefield like BDA stuff, Russia and Ukraine, this unit is here and doing this. It's everything's filtered through a lens already. And so you need to go in and consume that media with that recognition, and kind of that's the only way you'll really be able to form your own conclusions.
Awesome. What about transitioning from the military as a female? What can advice can you give to other females? Because I can't even tell you, as a father of 4 daughters, none of which have been in the military, but at the end of the day, I know things are difficult, especially now. I can't imagine what it's like. First off, as a female in the intel community, because there's not a lot, right?
Um, it really depends on where you're at.
Okay. Well, that's kind
There,
of good.
so when I was at the big agencies, it was pretty mixed. But when I was doing counter intel, no, I was the only one. When I
Damn.
was doing threat intel, I was the only one. Even doing targeting, you're briefing, you're writing packages for SEALs and whatever, and having to brief these people, and it could be kind of awkward, um, especially as a young woman, in your about then mid-20s. It can be difficult. Transitioning wasn't such a big deal, but I had to learn not to use the woman card. Well, I didn't have to learn not to use that. I never did. But highlighting your gender sets you back.
Yeah.
So the biggest issue that I had was when I started doing counter intel. A lot of people don't like intel analysts to begin with because they had a bad something happened on deployment, 10 years ago, and they got bad intel, and so now they hate intel analysts, or they don't understand how the process works, or they don't even know how to ask the question, of, hey, tell me about, like, I literally would have people come up to me, tell me about Russia. Well, what about it? Like, that's a very broad question, but they don't even know how to articulate what it is that they want, and then they get frustrated with you that you can't provide it. So you have to build a good relationship. But as a woman, that can be very difficult because of the environment in the past 10, 15 years. There's all these DEI hires. So there's kind of a mistrust in you to begin with, because how did you get here? But
Yeah.
then there's also, I don't want to say the wrong thing, get in trouble. And it took a long time to build these relationships and have people actually trust you, and as a person, but also trust your work. So that was very hard.
Yeah. Especially dealing with special ops guys can be a pain in
But
the
yeah.
ass.
Yeah.
I
Uh-huh.
was I was Marine Recon, so I get it. It's the whole not yeah. And it's the community. Just is what it
Yeah.
is. It's,
Right.
it's a little ridiculous. Um, so what projects are you currently like working on? Like who are you looking to interview and whatnot?
So I have a guy next week, I believe. I haven't solidified a date just yet, that I'm going to be interviewing, that actually he reached out to me. He has created this pretty incredible, I don't even know how to explain it. So you'd have to watch this podcast, but it's like a software suite that helps prevent and identify active shooters.
Okay.
Um, he's been trying to get with Congress and other, massive podcasts, and he's reached out to mainstream media, and he's kind of been thwarted at every turn. So he's reaching out to like smaller people. We ended up talking the other day for like 2 hours. And I
Nice.
think what he's created is really special, and could actually do some good. Another guy that I'm interviewing he's like the CEO of Wounded Warrior Family Society, I think is what it's, WWFS. It's not Wounded Warrior Project,
Right.
but they help combat veterans that have lost limbs, or those that have passed away. They help their families with, um, they do this crazy, awesome welding certificate at
Oh,
Ford up in Detroit that's cost like $100,000, and they fully pay for that. They help get vehicles for amputees and retrofit houses. So I really love talking to people that are doing good. Um, and I also I really want to talk to. I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen the movie Only the Brave? It came out like 2018, 16.
Maybe. Who's in
It's
it? Do you
it's about.
remember?
Oh, I can't. I'm so bad with names. Josh Brolin.
Okay. Yeah, I have seen it.
It's the firefighter movie. Yeah. So I really want to talk to one of the moms of the men that died. His name was Andrew Ashcraft. His mom's name is Deborah Finkston.
Yeah, I've
And
seen
there's a
that's the wildland firefighters, right?
right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There I want everyone to know that men like this exist and how important they are and what the whole, is left in the world by the fact that they're not here. And their widows went through hell trying to get benefits, and it's a nightmare. But I think if more people knew about their story and then also what they went through afterwards, there's a big potential for change there.
Brave. I'm just writing it down. Um, yeah, that sounds like a really good interview to me. I love those stories. They're
Hmm.
just awesome. Um, so again, what is this is I'll wrap it up with this question. And well, then we have one other thing. But um so the name of this show is Full Spectrum Frontiers.
Uh-huh.
So what do you see as like the full spectrum of national security that right now Americans really need to focus on in their daily lives? It's not an easy one. I know.
I think I think people need to focus on the local level. I think the threat of some kind of domestic terror incident is real. Um, I was talking to somebody the other day and heard of an incident that's not even been published in the media that is pretty terrifying. And Sarah Adams has gone on Sean Ryan, and she's kind of been beating this
Yeah.
drum for a while about an AQ threat on the homeland. I think small communities need to get together and start working to create some sort of action plan for who has what, who's got what skills, who's got what machinery, who's got what equipment. The TTP that they seem to want to employ, if what Sarah Adams is saying is true, which I have no reason to doubt, is kind of a multifaceted attack on several communities at possibly at once. And so it's going to target, multiple schools, multiple hospitals, communications may go down. So your resources are going to be scattered to the wind trying to handle this response. So you need to have a local community response plan in place to help assist, basically, without getting in the way.
Mhm.
You need somebody that really understands threat, that really understands action, and really understands execution, and go from there.
Yeah. I mean, like we had with the UN yesterday, and I can't remember which agency found, but there was the threat of the entire communication system going down, getting flooded with the 911 calls, right? With I can't remember what
Mm-hmm.
they call that place, what they call it. It's like basically a cell phone hub where
Mm-hmm.
these people have cell phones lining the walls, and they're linked, right? So imagine there's something like that called 911, and every
Yeah.
phone called 911, your whole emergency system. We lean way too much on that stuff. So
Mm-hmm. I saw that. That's crazy. It said they could send 30 million texts a minute. And I'm curious even as to, I saw the initial report. I've not seen anything um, since, but I was talking to my husband also. We had kind of a similar background, but a little bit different. But I was talking to him about it and was like, is this a node? So like
Yeah.
Intel has what's called nodes where you do collection, based on countries, and it's a whole thing that I won't go into for TGP reasons. But is that what it is? And it's just a collection thing, or is it intended to try and take down comm systems? I haven't seen anything that indicates either way, but I'm curious.
It's like they
I don't know
came
if we'll
out
ever
with
see
that
it, but
report and then just that was it. It
shelved it.
went into the
Yeah.
ether, you know.
There's so much of that. Yeah.
Well, it's like all the bots on the internet, right? Like we don't
Yeah.
like half of social media is bots. I
Right.
think
Well,
they
and then
think they say half about. So
I wouldn't be surprised. But then you see people like Sarah Adams and people like her, and she objectively, I'm not speaking ill on Sarah Adams, but if you know nothing about the current environment, she sounds crazy. It's like this
yes,
lady is saying Al Qaeda is going to attack us, but if you look at these kind of weird reports that come out once, never get followed up on, and then they disappear into the ether, and you actually start building this picture, it paints a pretty grisly picture. And people like her, like they're the ones that are putting it together, and it's not just assumptions. There's data to back it up. Like there are ongoing instances of this happening.
yeah, like real data too, and terrifying. I have two friends that one works for Border Patrol and the other one works for ICE, and just the people that they've caught
Mm-hmm.
that were on terrorist watch lists is absolutely terrifying. I
Yeah.
actually got chills just talking about it because they were telling me, and it's like, you've literally got to be kidding me. Like people like you hear that from the news, right? And you're like, oh well, no, it's real. It's happening. And
Mm-hmm.
ugh,
And
just gross.
what's even scarier is the difficulty in which there is to get put on a terror watch list. I mean,
Right. Like what you actually have to do.
well, what you actually have to do, but the information that you actually have to have. So you have to have an information sharing agreement with this country, or you have to have boots on the ground. There has to be a report in place to start this nomination request. So, and you have to have biometric identifiers. You have to have, like some kind of official record of a name, a date of birth, and like an actual government name, all kinds of different information. And how many times do we even have that? So the fact that somebody is not on a terrorist watch list, which is why I originally linked up with the woman that was doing all this, the local woman that I'm friends with now, that was doing all this investigation on Haiti, the Haitians that were coming in. We have no sharing agreement with Haiti. I mean, Haiti's infamously corrupt,
And they
and
basically don't have a functioning government at this point.
they don't have a functioning government. We have no way of knowing who these people are, period. And that's without them burning passports, at the Darien Gap or whatever. So it's the fact that we have so many people that are on the terrorist watch list that got in, not to mention the people that are on that got away, but how many people should be that aren't, that have come in.
It's pretty terrifying.
It's not great.
No, not at all. So, tell us where's the best place to find you and your work and
So
connect with you.
I am on TikTok. It's Megan.infernal_machine. I'm on X. I have I don't even know what my username is on X. It's like Meg.infl_MACHN. I'm horrible, but I have a Infernal Machine podcast X as well that I don't post on very well. I'm on YouTube, the Infernal Machine podcast. I'm pretty small. You kind of have to dig to find me because there's also a movie called The Infernal Machine, and that loves to
Yeah.
come up. I've never seen it. I bet it's great.
I'll make sure I have all the links in the show notes too. So,
Okay. And I'm also on Facebook, but I suck with that too. So sorry.
Facebook sucks anyway. So,
It does.
sorry guys, I have to say it. I have to say it out loud.
Sorry, Mark.
I'm not the biggest fan of X either, but
Yeah, X is spicy.
Can be scary. So, all right, Megan, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe we'll stop back down the road and do it again.
Absolutely.
Carry the fire through shadows and storm. Voices of yesterday guiding us on. Echoes of duty, the call we still hear. Building tomorrow with courage, not fear. Stand your ground, keep the watch through the night. Guarding tomorrow where freedom's alight. Through every trial, the truth will endure. Full spectrum frontiers, steady and sure. From fields of the past to horizons unknown, the seeds that we plant are the future we own. Stories of valor, of lessons we've learned, a legacy carried